we're going to be trying to wrap up by before the end of the year here. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
It's in high demand.
Yeah. For anybody who's not familiar, CTS is like a monthly reporting that the cannabis industry has to do that reports on what do you have at the beginning of the month, what have you produced, what have you sold, what have you basically transferred out of your facility, and what's your ending balance. And it's all got to reconcile within 5%. Otherwise, you get in trouble.
It's very time consuming
Yeah.
process. And then the CRA also wants those
Similar.
similar numbers.
Great. No, it's to integrate with. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess some terminology around that is our partner at Deloitte dubbed us like a system of record. So we're operating system of record versus the financial system of record. So we don't, and I don't like we'll never replace. That's not our goal, is to replace the financial system of record. It's to integrate with the financial system of record, but to give it much more accurate and real-time data from the operations team, from the operating system of record.
Okay. Pizza time.
Question in the back,
Oh,
Josh.
yeah. Let me just actually go back to that and I'll describe some use cases. So, on the QA side, what we've been able to prototype is basically within Elevated Signals, we basically have like a Google form. So, if everybody is familiar with that, where you can build out a form. So, let's say you're doing a sanitization, you build out like, here's the location, here's who did it, here's when they did it, and you create that as a form within our software. So with the LLM, what we can do is we can have you basically describe what you would like to see as basically success criteria, failure criteria for this when that document is submitted, and it can do kind of like a first pass, right? So it can do a first verification of has this been done correctly. So an LLM, what you can do is you can basically describe what output you're looking for in just plain old English, and it can kind of figure out if the other side is kind of living up to that. So that's mostly on like kind of like the QA side. There's a little bit of like bleed between what we would want to do with kind of the QA and the analyst. So what LLMs are also really good at is we can basically feed it a data set. We can tell it how to interpret our data set. So let's say I give it a data set of here's all the inventory that I have in my warehouse right now, right? And then what that LLM can basically do is it can use some tools to basically help it create a query, right? So I have this spreadsheet and I want to know, let's say on that spreadsheet, I have a bunch of different products in different formats, right? So I got things in jars, I got things in boxes. I can basically say, hey LLM, I want you to write a query that finds me how many jars do I have on hand. And what it can do is it can basically formulate that query. It can run that query against my data set. And then if I instruct it, it can actually graph it out for me as well, right? So this whole process of having to have someone go and find the answer, then take that answer and put it into a graph in Excel and then pass that back to me, that can basically almost happen in real time now. So yeah, it's really about kind of business analytics, business intelligence. That's really where that aspect comes in. That's for Ben. Um, but no, so that one is going to be a longer project. So we just started that one this quarter. So we don't expect to kind of see something for that until about Q2 of next year. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. We've tried to like this is actually one of the reasons why it's taken us so long to build elevated signals to kind of where it is today. Like if you look at a lot of our competitors that kind of grew up at the same time as elevated signals, they made their software really kind of focused around the cannabis language. Whereas what we did is we took inspiration from those tier one ERPs. We tried to focus a lot of how we architect the software as like how they did it. So for example, when we're approaching the AI, we're kind of looking at it from an agnostic perspective, from a general manufacturing, and not just from a cannabis perspective. And then what we'll do from there is we'll run our tests across multiple industries, and we may have to make some tweaks to the different features that we have, but we're always building something from an agnostic perspective. So the CTS question, for example, when we go back to that accounting, so that accounting kind of glue that we built, our accounting module, a lot of our competitors in the cannabis space had solved for the CTS problem by making a very rigid program. And as the industry has grown, it's actually created a lot of problems for them to be able to calculate that information. We've kind of just built our whole product on top of accounting principles of debits and credits, and then that's allowed us to basically be able to like take that accounting module and just say, hey, that form of government reporting that you have to do, well, actually that is just basically accounts and sub accounts and transactions that get mapped to that, right? So we're always thinking about it from a very agnostic perspective.
And Galit, that's a great point. We do have to think that way, and the majority of our focus is non-cannabis moving into 2020. I mean, already, but to 2025, we we're planning to get to 50% diversification, and then further beyond that. So we're totally open to any feedback and on that, because we really do have to make that happen and make sure that it's not just tailored to one industry, which is super hard to do. And oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, actually, that's a really good point, because when we put something on the screen, that's not kind of like, we're saying that like this is gonna happen in this way. Like we're just putting this out as like, here's what we would like to do, and then we're hoping to get a lot of feedback from our community, as well as like the reason I have those dotted lines is that's like the beta period where we're trying to basically work with our customers to understand if we're like building the right thing, and if we're not building the right thing, then we need to adjust, right? So
Oh, and no, yeah, I realized that after I did my intro and I had PH7 on the screen, I forgot to mention to everyone that Josh and Galit are from PH7. They're here with us today, so they've been amazing to work with and are